McCartney, one of the Beatles still alive, narrowly escapes an air crash that might have led to his death. This is not the first time he is escaping a crash. The first time, Paul survived a car accident even though there were rumors that he had died as a result of the car crash. According to sources, the pilot in charge of the aircraft McCartney boarded became disoriented as a result of bad weather conditions. The Department for Transport is still investigating the near crash of the helicopter carrying Paul McCartney and his wife. How he and his wife managed to avoid the near-death experience of the crash remains a mystery. Was there some kind of emergency exit? Or they were never in the helicopter? What were the details surrounding the crash? We'll dive right into this and all that happened. But before we do so, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exclusive content on the Beatles. The news about one of the Beatles surviving a helicopter disaster has made headlines for a while now. While the Beatle involved is still yet to make any comment, different people have shared different stories about the near accident. This is not the first time Paul McCartney has been in the news due to a different crash. It was rumored for years that Paul was dead and the Beatles used his look-alike to replace him. The bizarre story about one of the biggest Beatles dying in a car crash started making rounds back in 1966. 50 years ago, a Detroit DJ accidentally shared the biggest hoax in rock and roll history. The Paul is dead crazy story blew up on the 12th of October, 1969, when Russ Gibb was hosting his show on WKNR. A mysterious caller told him to put on the Beatles' White Album and spin the number 9 intro from Revolution 9 backward. When Gibb tried it on the air, he heard the words, "Turn me on, dead man." The clues kept coming. At the end of it, Strawberry Fields Forever, John says, "I buried Paul." What could it all mean? To some fans, it meant the Beatles were hiding a secret. They started spreading the news that Paul McCartney got killed in a car crash back in 1966, and the band replaced him with an imposter. The rumor spread like wildfire as fans searched their Beatle albums for clues. 50 years later, Paul is dead remains the weirdest and most famous of all music conspiracy theories. It became a permanent part of Beatles history, a fan-generated phenomenon that the band could only watch with amusement or exasperation. As Paul told Rolling Stone in 1974, "Someone from the office rang me up and said, 'Look, Paul, you're dead.' And I said, 'Oh, I don't agree with that.'" When the rumors first blew up, Paul McCartney was not dead. He was in seclusion on a Scottish farm with Linda, Heather, and their 6-week-old daughter Mary, known to the world as the infant cradled in his leather jacket in Linda's most famous photo. With a newborn baby to care for, he was in no mood to indulge in the media frenzy. As he told Rolling Stone, they said, "Look, what are you going to do about it? It's a big thing breaking in America. You're dead." And so I said, "Leave it. Just let them say it. It'll probably be the best publicity we've ever had, and I won't have to do anything except stay alive." So I managed to stay alive through it. But after the Detroit radio broadcast, people still pounced on the story and spread it like wildfire. 2 days later, the Michigan Deco explained the Abbey Road cover as a funeral procession for Paul. Maybe. Even though the rumor spread like wildfire, it did not change the fact that Paul is still alive. He is still active as a songwriter and performer. Even the helicopter crash he narrowly escaped did not take his life. On the 3rd of May, the former Beatle and his wife were traveling back home to East Sussex, England, when their chartered Sikorsky S-76C suddenly began heading downwards, towards trees as the pilot tried to land on the singer's helipad. According to the UK paper, the helicopter was just 2 feet away from a fatal crash when the pilot was suddenly able to pull the 9-seater aircraft away from the treetops and later touched down safely at a nearby airport. Everything happened so fast, and a major disaster was averted. If the crash had happened, who knows, both Paul and his wife might not have survived it, and the rumor that had gone around about him dying in a crash would have been confirmed. Paul McCartney and his wife were on their way home when the near crash almost happened. Earlier in the evening, Sir Paul and Lady McCartney attended the launch of Mary McCartney's food at Liberty in London's West End. They chartered the 9-seater helicopter, owned by Air Harrods, and took off from Battersea Heliport in South London at 9:30 p.m., approaching the couple's East Sussex home 25 minutes later when the incident happened. The Beatles legend and his wife, Nancy Chevelle, were just 2 feet away from disaster as the helicopter plunged towards trees. But fortunately, the pilot dramatically lifted the charted Sikorsky S-76C away at the last minute. The near crash happened as the aircraft attempted to land at night on a helipad at Paul's East Sussex estate, and the helicopter eventually touched down safely after diverting to a nearby airport. The couple was said to be unaware of how close they came to crashing. Both Paul and his wife were not fully aware of how close the aircraft was to the ground, but the near miss is being investigated by the Department of Transport. According to the Mail on Sunday newspaper, the Air Incidents Investigation Branch has categorized the episode, which occurred on the 3rd of May, as a serious incident, which it defines as involving circumstances indicating that an accident nearly occurred. The AAIB report reveals that the helicopter's altimeter was 2 feet away from the treetops before the 55-year-old pilot managed to execute a climb. According to reports, the pilot was able to manage the whole situation, but the disaster nearly happened as a result of bad weather conditions. The reports also revealed the flying conditions that night. The conditions were low cloud base, poor visibility, and rain. Despite all of these, the pilot went ahead and prepared to land on Paul's helipad, which is in the corner of the field encircled by woodland. The AAIB reports stated that while maneuvering, the commander became disoriented and the helicopter descended towards tops of trees in the forested area to the south and west of the landing site. The pilot then executed a go-around or aborted landing. Peter Norton, chief executive of the British Helicopter Association, said he, the pilot, was going to land and realized he wasn't in control of the aircraft because of the weather conditions and visibility. He pulled in lots of power to climb away and correct the aircraft to its proper flight path and missed whatever it was by 2 feet. After the incident happened, lots of fans were eager to know how the music legend and his wife felt and how they would react to it. However, in the wake of the near miss, it seems that McCartney was moved to bury one of rock and roll's longest surviving hatchets. The biggest fight among the Fab Four was finally settled. As reported by UK newspaper The Guardian, in an upcoming interview with British television host David Frost, McCartney finally puts to rest the long-standing notion that Yoko Ono was to blame for the split of the Fab Four. He said, "She certainly didn't break the group up. The group was breaking up already. When Yoko came along, part of her attraction was her avant-garde side, her view of things, so she showed him another way to be, which was very attractive to John. So it was time for John to leave. He was going to leave one way or another." While many thought blaming Yoko for the Fab Four's breakup was absurd, it's something that has never truly been put to rest. That is, until McCartney had to address it after he narrowly escaped disaster. McCartney's admission prompted the public response